How do you know the difference between what's real and what's fake? If you're reading a news article, how do you know if you're being fed the truth or you're being fed propaganda? And if you were being fed propaganda, would you be able to realize it? Tonight on After Dark, we are diving into the world of propaganda. And we're taking a close look at the media. And I think it's good to take a close look at the media because let me give you a scary fact right up front. 6 companies own 90% of the media that Americans consume. We're talking media here. Print, TV, radio. Now, I want you to think about that figure as we talk about tonight's subject on After Dark. This is Operation Mockingbird. I live in Tennessee, and in Tennessee, the mockingbird is the state bird. And I'm actually not a big fan of the mockingbird because, one, they're kind of mean. They're known to swoop down at people. And the second thing is they wake me up every morning. So I get to hear them singing every morning, which is what I wake up to. And since I'm not a big morning person, don't really care for them. But the mockingbird gets its name because it mocks and it mimics other creatures. So if it hears another bird singing, it can imitate that. Or if it hears other, animals and stuff that are crying out, then it can imitate that. And so they call it the mockingbird. So Operation Mockingbird was something pretty similar. They were wanting people to just mimic and just repeat what they hear. In the 50s, the CIA decided that it would be a good idea to start infiltrating the media. It started out as a way to combat communism. Of course, if you have people in the media, then you can plant stories, whether they be true or fake. You can divert attention, and you can block stories, and then ultimately control the story. In the 1950s, it's known that there were at least 3,000 people on the payroll for paper, magazines, radio, and TV. They had over $1 billion for a budget. Think about that. We're talking the 1950s here, and they're using that kind of money to infiltrate every news organization that they can. One CIA operative said you could get a journalist cheaper than a good call girl for a couple $100 a month. At one point, they had infiltrated the Washington Post, ABC, NBC, CBS, Time, Newsweek, Associated Press, Reuters, the New York Times, and some of the most prestigious universities in the country, and many, many more. Thomas Braden, head of the International Organizations Division, which was closely tied to the CIA during this operation, he said, quote, "If the director of the CIA wanted to extend a present, suppose he just thought, this man could use $50,000. He's working well and doing a good job. He could hand it to him and never have to account to anybody. There was simply no limit to the money it could spend and no limit to the people it could hire and no limit to the activities it could decide were necessary to conduct the war, the secret war. It was multinational." Now again, this started back in the 50s. Do you know when we found out about it? Not until the mid-70s, when a select committee to study governmental operations with respect to intelligence activities happened in 1975. There was a church committee that looked into these operations. Here's some testimony under oath for Congress in 1975.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to a major circulation American journal.
We do have people who submit pieces to American journals.
Do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks?
This, I think, gets into the kind of getting into the details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into in executive session.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to the national news services, AP and UPI?
Well, again, I think we're getting into the kind of detail, Mr. Chairman, that I'd prefer to handle in executive session.
Print, radio, and TV. Does that make you feel any better about 6 companies owning 90% of the media that Americans are consuming? The question is, would you know the truth if you were reading it? Or would you believe propaganda? How would you know? If you want to read more about it, look into Operation Mockingbird. If you enjoyed this episode of After Dark, be sure to let me know, and we'll continue down the rabbit hole.
Would you say that continues today?
Well, I would think probably for a reporter it would continue today, but because of all of the revelations of the period of the 1970s, it seems to me that a reporter's got to be much more circumspect in doing it now, or he runs the risk of at least being looked at with considerable disfavor by the public. I think you've got to be much more careful about it.